Lucy, we'll just jump straight in.
Yeah, go for it.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We've had a couple of teachers on recently, and you are our third teacher now, but the story of getting into teaching is really interested us, and we wanted to know more about it. So yeah, we put a couple of invites out, and yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
All right.
So usually with these podcasts is we like to know your journey in. What you've been doing before teaching and why you've got into teaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to introduce yourself and where you work, and take us back.
Yeah. So my name's Lucy. I'm currently on placement at a primary school in Beverley Minster Primary School, working in an EYFS class. So I'm doing the 3 to 7 course.
Right.
So I will just work across reception year 1 and year 2.
Okay.
My previous placement, I was at Hunsley Primary.
Yep.
Started there in September. I also work as a teaching assistant, so I'm only doing my teacher training part-time.
Right, okay.
So on a Monday and Tuesday, I'm a TA at South Cave Primary School.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is my teacher training part of my week.
Right, okay. So a lot of teaching then.
Yes.
A lot of
It's
teaching.
a busy week.
How long have you been in teaching for?
I've been a TA for my 7th year now as a TA.
Yeah.
So originally when I left school, I went to college and trained to be a nursery nurse. And then for whatever reason at that time, just didn't really get into it. Qualified and finished, couldn't really get a job. So just ended up working my part-time job full-time. And then before you know it, 5 years have gone. And that's it, you've kind of fallen out with it. And then I had my eldest son, and the job that I was at wouldn't let me go back part-time.
Right.
So I thought, you know what, it's time to get back into what I actually really, really want to do. But at this point, my nursery nurse qualification was 10 years old.
Yeah.
I can't go looking for jobs with a 10-year-old qualification. So I went back and retrained as a teaching assistant, volunteered at South Cave while I did my training. And then thankfully a job came up there. And then 7 years later, still there.
Still there. You know, we always have this funny joke about people get into it and then they never leave once they're in.
Yeah, that's it.
Because they absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Are you one of them? Do you love it?
I love it.
You love
I
it.
do. I love my TA job. I really do. I love the teacher I work with. I love the school. I love the kids. But I've kind of just got to that point where I just want a little bit more.
Okay.
I feel old going into teaching, but I've still got a lot of working years left in me. So I just wanted that bit of something else, and teaching just felt like the natural progression. It's really what I should have done following my nursery nurse course. But, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I honestly don't believe I was ready for it at that time. Whereas now I do feel it's now my natural next step.
Yeah, I think everything happens, you know, for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, in its own time. My journey was very kind of not what I expected it to be. And you always look back, don't you, and think, oh, if I'd just done that then, I'd be so much further ahead here. But that's life, isn't it? You know, life is it throws you different ways and you're supposed to. But it's nice that you've, you know, that was your interest back in the beginning and now you're doing it. Just talk to me then about getting back into teaching, that kind of, you know, obviously it sparked your idea of, I want to get into teaching. We see adverts on the TV all the time, and I'm going to talk to you like, I have no idea, because to be honest, I don't. But all the time, get into teaching, go visit this website and this site. But it almost feels like, I think, unless you are leaving school, you maybe 17, 18 after college, unless you've got into teaching, it's quite hard then to find a route in. It is. What was your... Talk to us about that day when you thought, I want to get in. What did you first do? Were you like Googling or? Yeah,
so it was a real, I'd been sort of looking at other jobs, still sort of within education, but maybe out of the school environment and things like that, because I've always had this thing that I can't teach. I'll never be able to do it. I'm not good enough to do that. And then I don't know, I just had this like light bulb moment as, no, I can absolutely do this. This is what I want to do, so this is what I'm going to do. So I went and spoke to my head teacher about it to see if there was any options, you know, through school, because I didn't want to leave at that point. That was my other thing. To train with them would have been perfect. He looked into it. He went above and beyond to try and make it work through the apprenticeship route. But it wasn't going to work financially for them. So then I looked at lots of other, there's thousands of providers out there, but they're all full-time courses, which was not financially viable for me.
So is that like a uni course then? That you've
pretty
got to
much,
sit
yeah.
and pay for yourself?
Yes.
Right, okay.
So you'd get, obviously, your student loan for it. Because I already had my degree, I only needed to do the top-up, so to speak, to get your QTS, your qualified teacher status. But I couldn't afford to come out of work completely. Obviously, being that mature student, I have a house, I have 2 children. You know, to lose that wage was just not viable. So it was only because my head teacher contacted Alison at Yorkshire Wolds and said, is there anything you can do or anything you have available? And she said, we're actually trialling a part-time route. So I am a guinea pig, which they started last September. I went through the interview process with them and got a place on the part-time route. So it means that I can obviously still work my 2 days, have that bit of wage coming in, and do my teacher training on the side. So it does take me a bit longer. 18 months I do it for.
I've just put, how long is it?
Yeah, which actually in the grand scheme of things, I don't think is too bad. No. So everybody else is obviously coming to an end now. They're finishing sort of July time and looking for jobs for September. I've got till Christmas. I'll be qualified by December.
Fully qualified as a teacher.
Fully qualified teacher, looking for jobs for January. So really, it's only another term that I've had to do. And still being able to work at the same time.
I bet it's flown by as well, hasn't it?
It really has.
You can't believe that you've already done that much of it as well.
Yeah.
So this is really interesting. Honestly, it is, because it feels like this type of setup, a lot of people don't know about it. No. Well, one, you said it was new. Yeah. So that's obviously it's not being advertised as much. But the fact that you can keep the job that you're doing, and I'm guessing working as a TA then, could you, well, you might know this, could you be working another job, say working in a off licence and then train? Absolutely.
I could be doing anything on those 2 days.
Okay.
There's a lady doing it on the secondary course who's also doing it part-time. She doesn't work the Monday, Tuesday. She's purely just doing it part-time for family reasons or commitments, whatever that may be. So yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, I probably would do it part-time and not work, just to give yourself a bit of breathing space. And that's been the challenge, is finding the time to do the work.
What's the training look like then?
It's full on, because obviously you're cramming a lot into. It is. I found it hard only being in placement 2 days, because it takes you a lot longer to get into the routines of school, getting to know the kids. But then it does help being a TA as well. I already know what that looks like. I know all schools are very different, but that has really helped me in terms of the expectations of me as a teacher in a school.
And understanding what goes on at the back.
The process and everything. We're doing PGCE alongside our QTS as well, which is
that? A lot of abbreviations there.
Yeah. So that's sort of like an additional teaching qualification, which really, the only thing that gives you is the ability to teach abroad.
Okay.
Which for me probably isn't something I would consider, but most providers don't give you you have to do that as an additional add-on.
Yeah.
So that is another really good thing with Yorkshire Wolds, that they do that as part of it.
Okay.
No qualification is wasted, I don't think. There's a lot you get a lot out of it in terms of the research and all that side of it, which is really good. But obviously then there's assignments to go along with that, which just adds to your workload.
Yeah.
So we have 2 assignments to do across the year. And then just all your sort of weekly, day-to-day paperwork as well. So yeah, it is full on.
I can imagine. Is it like e-learning? A lot of e-learning, or is it?
Not really. So our Fridays are our training days, our face-to-face, which is at Yorkshire Wolds, which is next door to South Hunsley, the big secondary school.
Then.
Yeah. So we do have a lot of face-to-face. There isn't really anything we do online, which I prefer, really.
Yeah.
I had to finish my degree in COVID.
Right.
And I hated that. That last 6 months of having to do everything online was just not for me. So we get a lot of teachers from other schools coming in and talking to us about different subject areas. There's nothing, you can't beat face-to-face connection, can you really?
Definitely. I worked in, my whole world is relationships and it's been right hard. You know, COVID was terrible. All meetings went online. Everything went online. Networking events went online. They were terrible. They were literally moving you in a big room and then putting you in another digital room with people, and everyone's like,
it's not what networking's about.
It's not networking's about at all. It's about that human connection. And as teachers, you need human connection. Absolutely. It's a massive part of it. So You've just done a year, then you say. You finish at the end of this year, fully qualified. So do the but I don't think we mentioned who it is. It's Yorkshire Wolds.
Yes,
that's right. Teaching, and they're part of the Teal
Trust.
Teal Trust.
Yeah.
So they help you. Well, basically, what we have here is ultimately a apprentice route, something that would be done in college that is now done live. So once you come to the end, then do they help you get into work within the trust, or looking at different schools? But not
as such. Your placements are like live interviews, really. If you think how many schools are part of that Teal Trust, most of your placements are generally or they may be based in a school that's, you know, got connections with Teal. So you're already out there, you're already making those connections and building those relationships. It doesn't necessarily guarantee you a job at the end of it, because obviously it all depends what's available at that time. But I think being part of it and them having that huge network of schools that they do work with is a huge bonus. Yeah.
So when we get qualified, become a teacher, I understand quite a bit about finances within schools, just because I sit within the teams and speak a lot about that. We have a bad time at the moment with falling pupil numbers, and that's causing this huge knock-on effect of schools having to make, you know, redundancies in some places, some going from situations where they're doing 2 form intake down to 1 and dropping it. Then you've got this mix of whether you go as permanent or whether you go as, you know, fixed, and there's all the it's hard. It's really hard for a school to look at, to think long term. So you've probably, I don't know how much you've thought about this in depth, but because I guess it's you can't look at the future and think, well, there's no point in doing it. But does all that come into play in your thinking of teaching, or are you quite, at the end of the day, there's got kids need teaching regardless? So you know, but what's your opinion on all that?
In terms of me getting a job, what am I going to look for?
Yeah. Would you always want permanent role, or would you look to take?
I think to begin with, it would have to be a case of whatever is out there. I don't think these days you can be that picky. Even if there was like a maternity cover or something like that, my thing with it is you never know what door is going to open from that one. So even if you get in on a maternity cover, yes, it will probably only be, you know, fixed for 12 months, but you don't know what that might lead to afterwards. So I'm very in the moment with it. Let's see what's around at that time. I don't really mind whether it's part-time, full-time. I did only work part-time before I did this. So now I've effectively gone full-time. So I would have no issue with carrying on working full-time. Equally, I could always take a part-time role and top it up with supply work if I felt I needed to do that financially. So that's another option as well. If there aren't any jobs out there in January, supply is another road I would go down. It gets me in schools, it gives me the experience, it gives me a variety of schools as well, and again, so it will give me an idea of what I do or don't want from a school. There's always
there is with teachers, isn't there? There's a pool of reserves ultimately that you can always, because the thing is, if you've got 12 teachers that are all got a class, and one of them rings in sick, that's an absolute nightmare for the school. You're almost on call. All of that's how it kind of feels from the outside. But is that how it is? Would you just would you take a call on the day before and go, can you come in?
You literally are available from 7:30 in the morning, and you'll sit and wait and see if you get a call.
See if anyone rings. But I guess you're preparing for that, aren't you? You are
that's
on
what
that.
You sign up for with that. The only issue with that for me as a newly qualified teacher, so you have what they call ECT, which is your early career teacher. So you're an ECT for 2 years after you qualify. So you're still sort of observed a bit and assessed against the teaching standards for 2 years. If you're only on supply, unless you're on long-term supply, that wouldn't count towards your ECT.
Right,
so you would need like a permanent or at least a fixed term contract with the school for that. So that's something I would need to be mindful of. But you don't have before do you remember when it was NQT? That's what they used to be called back in the day. Back in the day, they were newly qualified teachers, and you only had like a set. I think it was something like 5 years. You had to complete your NQT, but you don't have that anymore. Right, so that's less pressure as well.
It's so just going back a little bit then. So at the moment, as a teaching assistant, that's what you do. What's that look like in the class? Are you always with another teacher, or will you have the class on your own?
Because I work in EYFS, generally I'm always with the other teacher, or we work parallel. So we'll maybe split the class and we'll do the same thing but with different groups. You do very little as a whole class in EYFS. Because they can't sit for long periods of time. Imagine. So you'd maybe have 20 minutes, half an hour at the most of sitting, and then we'll go off and work in little groups. So we do the same as each other, but just like say parallel and separate.
So you're always around, but you're always ultimately the teacher's your mentor then the whole time. And then you're just kind of quizzing, asking,
you're following their direction, and that's been another challenge I would say with the part-time. On a Monday, Tuesday, I'm a TA. I take the orders, I do what I'm asked to do, and then suddenly on a Wednesday, Thursday, I have to switch into teacher mode, and I'm the one now delegating and the one, deploying the support staff, that's been really tricky.
Have you, with the assignments that you get or the work that you have to do, is being a TA helped you take information and then be in the assignment and go, I already know that because I've done it with the TA stuff, or is it completely different?
Majority of it, I would say, is completely different, really. Right, okay. A lot of it is really research-based. So you, like our first assignment, we took like a particular activity and looked at all the research behind that. But on my first placement, I was in year 2. Which is obviously quite different to EYFS. So a lot of the stuff was fairly new to me. I've been in EYFS for 5 years now. So year 2 was quite a new thing. So there was lots of new things that I got from that. And then with the second assignment we've just done, that was more about collaborative teaching and working with other staff as opposed to working with the children. So again, that was quite eye-opening. And I have a very good working relationship with my teacher that I work with as a TA. And you don't just get that overnight.
No, you don't.
My second placement, I only started in February. And then suddenly we were thrown into this collaborative assignment that we had to do, which, was tricky. But you do get a lot out of it.
Yeah. So have you been involved with, do you get involved, the fact that you do TA work at the beginning of the week, do you get involved with teacher training days?
Sometimes it depends what they're about.
So let's ask the question. So, teacher training days then. Terrible for parents.
Absolutely.
So I've not got there. I've got a 4 and a 2-year-old and we're about to start the biggest one in school. But teacher training days are a disaster, especially. But what's what happens on them days? Do the teachers go somewhere? Or do they is it online coursing or is it upskilling? Generally,
it depends on your school. Ours at South Cave are usually all based at school, and it's a chance for all the teachers to get together. They might talk about curriculum, whether they're going to be changing anything. We have lots of like safeguarding meetings, ones like that we are involved in as TAs. Curriculum writing and planning, we don't really get involved in as a TA. Schools with part of Teal, they often have training days. So like the one before Easter holidays, they did a massive one at South Hunsley. Every school from the Teal Trust had this huge training day at South Hunsley. It's more like a workshop really than anything else. It's just about sharing your knowledge really and your expertise and
Yeah. It's funny. We used to love them as kids.
Yeah,
obviously.
extra day off.
But extra day off. But then, as I've not really thought about them until I became a parent. And I'm like, oh no, what happens if they have one on like a Thursday? Like what's going to happen? But we have methods to get around it because we've got to navigate that now, with having 2 children. They've been going to nursery, so that they've got themselves ready for school. But it's the timings changed, the 3:30 finish, and then we've been looking at things like wraparound care and all this, and can you have kids in after school clubs and all that. But I just remember when I was younger, so I was born, 80, well, I was born in 86, so I'm 38 now, so I remember school, so I remember school exactly the same. I don't ever remember loads of after-school clubs. It was always like, I don't even remember nursery weren't really a thing back
I remember
then.
Preschool, but
preschool
prior to that,
and so much has changed.
It has,
Today, school isn't what it was for us back then. But in terms of like after school club and stuff like that, are you involved? Does that happen where you are? It
is a thing, yes. So there's one on my placement school that I'm at now. There's one on my previous one. At South Kiv, we have one. It's not part of the school. It's like a separately run charity organisation, but they use our school premises for it. The school my son goes to, they have one that is run by the school. But when we were looking at schools, when he started, the one that was actually closer to us had no wraparound care.
Right.
So for me, working in a school, that just wasn't feasible. Like, I have to be there for when the children come in, and I can't leave until they've gone. So I then couldn't be there to pick him up and drop him off at those school times. So that ruled that school out for us because
that's
no
a big
other
thing.
option. Yeah,
I've spoke to some schools about this, like not having that. So schools are desperate for pupils, to come in, and unless they're hitting all these markers, they're going to miss out to the next one. And there's a great example of how many working parents there are that there is. And a lot of them are like, how do we get more kids? And it's like, well, you need to
make your services more available. We're not all, I'm very lucky I have a mother-in-law who does a lot for us, but I can't possibly expect her to pick up and drop off 5 days a week. That's not doable for her. So I needed that, additional help. So
it's that's what we're trying to get our heads around next. It's is school this 9 while 3 p.m. situation, or are we going to be looking at maybe a bit earlier, maybe till 5 o'clock? How are they going to feel about it? I always remember, and that's hard because then all their friends are leaving at 3:30 and you're sticking around, as long as they're doing something fun. So with your location, so you're based in Beverley.
Yeah, that's where my placement is now.
How many, when you looked then for training, and just going back to actually how did you come across the Teal or the Yorkshire Wolds setup? Was it through Google or was it through a recommendation?
So I think being in the area, you know who Teal are. So my son's school is North Cave, who are a Teal school. So I already knew about it through that. They're always advertising the Yorkshire Wolds Teacher Training programme. I know from things he said that they've had students in his classes before. So I already knew of it. They have a massive banner as you drive down the A63, you can see it. But I ruled it out because I didn't know that, they had the part-time option. I just thought it was like all the other providers and that it was full-time only, and that was that. Like I say, it was only because my head teacher
had mentioned
made that connection with the head of Yorkshire Wolds and asked the question.
The only reason is they've got something really special there.
They have.
It's almost like I'm a big football fan, so we can use football analogy, but they've built their own academy that they can almost bring teachers through and then populate into school, whereas not many trusts have that.
No.
I don't know anyone that we spoke about. There will be, because there'll be something going on. But it's so under advertised. But maybe that's why it is under advertised, because there isn't that setup happening elsewhere.
Maybe, and I get that it's a big thing and it's a different way of doing it. And they only took on three of us last September, purely because they had never done it before. And you don't really know how it's going to go until you do it. But this will sound really dramatic, but I literally would not be going into teaching if it wasn't for Yorkshire Wolds.
Which is incredible.
It's as clear cut as that. So yeah.
Which shows how important it is. So how many people are we leaving out there? that are not getting the opportunity because they don't know the way it is. But then going back to the chat about, falling pupil numbers, to then bring teachers in, it's a really hard dynamic to get right. Let me talk about your future then, because you're obviously, I'm talking to you like I've known you for 25 years. Let's talk about your future. You're in early years at the moment. What age group is this then?
So my training is 3 to 7. I can go up to year 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, realistically, if you went in a school and they said, we need you to go and teach year 4, you would do that.
Okay.
It's more sort of trying to focus on your preference. I didn't choose 5 to 11 because you don't get to work in EYFS if you do 5 to 11.
Okay.
And year 6 frightens me.
Yes.
So that's why I opted for 3 to 7.
So that's the question then is there a future for you where you maybe go into secondary school and higher education, or is that something that...
I don't think secondary's for me.
No,
definitely primary.
Yeah.
I would like to think maybe after a few years of experience, I would feel more confident in heading up to like year 5, year 6. My niche, I think, is EYFS.
Yeah.
I love it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I think it's very Marmite. People either absolutely love it or they hate it.
Yeah.
We speak to other trainees and they're like, how can you even be in the EYFS class, But it's just,
it's interesting because I go into a lot of schools, and to be honest, I've done a lot of career talks to children, in year 11, year 12, not year 11, year 12, up to year 11. And they're really tricky, a really, really tricky bunch. Yeah. A lot of attitude can come into this point, and teaching becomes a completely different game. You need a completely different skill set to be dealing with it. And yet I go into primary schools and the kids are like amazing and they're all happy. And I can understand why people wouldn't want to transition up. In schools then, is there a career path like that? Like what is the career path of a teacher? I know it's probably teacher, deputy head teacher, but is that something that you've got on your mind, or are you thinking I want to go into teaching and then serve, the children?
Yeah, at the minute I would say I don't really know. I would sort of like to see how it goes. So your next step up will be looking into like SLT, which is your senior leadership team.
Okay.
So then you could become head of something. So you would have people who are maybe head of maths in school or head of English, and they will be in charge of that subject across the whole of the school. You're then looking at your assistant deputy head or your deputy head. I think I'm too old now to be looking headship-wise. I think I'm a bit far off that now, but maybe.
Saying that, you've just become a teacher.
Well, true.
A lot of people wouldn't... And what I love about this is that there's options there for people, whether you're working part-time or you fancy getting into teaching. This is a real great example that to get into teaching is this, and you're living it. Yeah. Aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've had quite a while now, though, within the education setup. I'll ask you a controversial question. You don't have to be too controversial, don't worry. But there's sometimes our education system, the way it's done, things like exams and stuff like that, has been going on for centuries. It's the same methods that have been going on. Is there anything like that you see that we could improve on? And I'm not calling you out, but I think it's important that sometimes we get different opinions and sides from people that are in it. At the moment we follow suit because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. But like I said to you earlier, we've obviously got the SATs going on at the moment, and I look at the kids doing the SATs, and it's like we were doing these years ago. Yeah. And I think what I'm trying to get at is would you change anything to improve it, or is the method that we've got the working method and it works?
There's clearly room for improvement, isn't there, somewhere? What the exact answer to that is, I don't know. For me, SATs is something I do think they need to get rid of now. It tells us nothing about the children. It's a snapshot of them, which as a teacher, you know them better than what that SATs paper can tell you. It's no measure of them as a person, of their artistic abilities or creative abilities, none of that. So for me, for the pressure that it puts them under, and the school, to be honest, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's all about data.
Yes.
That's all anybody seems to be bothered about. and it just creates this.
Yeah, so the reason I ask is obviously seeing it firsthand and being in the room, it's that you've got, there was 60 kids all sitting this one exam, and it was on maths, and I get the purpose of it, it gets them thinking, etc. But everyone learns differently.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we didn't have the data that we have today. How many different careers there are today, creative careers, and it's really harsh to grade somebody on something that they don't. That isn't how they function properly. Yeah. I left school with, unfortunately, really, really bad grades on my GCSEs, and I've spoke about this on other podcasts. And I think the only high grade I got was an A, and that was in drama. And then and that was because I was quite expressive. I was good at speaking to people, but the rest of them were hitting D's and I was so far off the mark for the next stage of my life, but it almost put so much pressure on me to think that I was failing at 15 years old. And it was just a crazy time because it's like, but I know things have come on a lot better now. There's different options for children. But the SATs really did interest me because I thought that these results would go up to the next stage for them to kind of have an assessment. They don't. Nope. They go up and then get reassessed on their ability.
Exactly. So then
I'm like, hang on then. So why are we doing these SATs? And it's like to see what the grading is for the school and whether they're underperforming. Yeah. But we use them as guinea pigs to tell how the school are doing.
Exactly.
So I agree with you. Yeah. Totally.
And like I say, because we had that period of COVID where we didn't do them, which clearly proved that it makes no difference and that we don't need to, I really hoped that we would have gone, do you know what, let's forget it. But
do you know, there is the play, I guess, that if we remove SATs, for instance, what the children, as they're coming to the end of their time, whether they lose focus. Do you think having a mini exam like that keeps them focused to because obviously it's no coincidence that it's in May, 2 months before they finish school. So all they need to do is put it in June, end of June, and they've got them. But do you think if we removed such an event that there'd be a bit of lack of concentration? Or
I don't think so. No, because really from, I don't know, you could probably argue Christmas, that's all they're really doing anyway, is preparing for SATs. Yeah. So you're not actually teaching them any additional content, you're teaching them how to answer a question.
Yes.
So really you've got from all that time anyway where you could argue that they're not actually focused in any, really in-depth learning anyway. Yeah. So let's scrap trying to teach them how to answer a question and let's just keep teaching them actual, let's prepare them a bit more for secondary. Let's teach them a few more life skills maybe that they might need as we get that bit older. It's a big transition from year 6 to year 7. A lot of them will start making their own way to school. They'll become a lot more independent than what we are. Let's try and build on that a bit more as opposed to what the square root of something is that isn't going to really help them right now. So it just I think I've just thought about it a lot because obviously it's SATs week and I've sat in it and I've seen it, what's going on. But I just when I'm looking at it, like we could almost have this stage where you bring in volunteers that take them to secondary school and let them sit in there for a week and use that 6 months gaining life experience. And you're right, I remember first day of secondary school, it was crazy. All the kids from all different schools come together and all the people start forming into different groups. That is a lot. And especially when you come from quite a small primary school as well. Yeah. So like I was at South Cave, we are only one form intake. My son's school is even less. So they only intake 20 per year. That's really how small they are. And then you go up to somewhere like South Hunsley where there's thousands. It's huge. Even that in itself is daunting, let alone working out how many different rooms you've got to be in that day, where you've got to be, which block you've got to be in. It's massive. Yeah, it didn't. And I've not thought about it. You will, because you're in it. And you see them and you see how they're approaching that time. But for me, I've not seen it that much, but I think I've just looked at it, I'm like, wow, we're still doing this after this long. Maybe something can change. Just on Yorkshire Wolds then, just want to talk about these guys because I think we might have to get these guys on, to be fair. I'm surprised you haven't. I know, honestly. To be honest, it's like they are quite incredible what they do. Is the tutors there? Are they teachers then? So
So they're teachers working, or are they ex-teachers?
Nope, working teachers.
So they're working teachers.
Yorkshire Wolds have a big belief that how can somebody teach you to how to be a teacher if they've not been in a classroom for
I totally get that.
10 years or whatever.
Yeah,
so they don't have to be, but apart from obviously Alison, who is the head of it, all the rest of them are still working teachers.
Right.
So they can give you their first-hand experiences, and which is, like gold dust, really. It really is. So we all, when we first start, we're grouped into tutor groups. And we get our own tutor, we have weekly meetings with. They're our go-to if we've got any issues with anything. We also, over the year, spend 4 weeks in their school as well. Right. They call them ITAP weeks, intensive training weeks. And you have a focus for that week. And you get to spend the whole week in their school, which again is just like another placement, really. Yeah. It's having that extra experience of another school environment. Yeah. That they've been really good. I've really enjoyed
it sounds really good. And I think, for anyone, I think advice is, if anyone's working within that region, the Humber region especially, they've got an incredible opportunity to get into teaching, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely.
So just advice then, really, from yourself. I think what's nice to hear is that it's incredible that it's there, and we're learning something new, and obviously as people listen, they can take it. But I think advice that you could give to people that are thinking about getting into teaching, what would it be?
Do it. Don't be put off by the press and the headlines and the continuous negativity that surrounds it. You have that in any job, no matter what you do. There's always something that we would change or that we don't like. And to me, all of that is out of my control. I can't control what the government do or what the DfE decide to do. I want to be in that classroom with those kids, supporting them and helping them through their school life. Just focus on that. Don't worry about whatever else is going on higher above. Just go for it. I spent too many years thinking that I couldn't do it, but you can. Honestly,
and
you really can.
Doing it.
Yeah, and no matter what else, yes, I've got kids, I've got another job, and I'm trying to probably cram a lot into 1 week, but it is achievable. I'm a big believer in nothing that's easy to come by is worth having. Yeah. If it's going to be worth it. Come Christmas, I'll come back and I'll say 100% worth it.
Are we going to get you back on then when you're fully qualified?
Maybe,
to talk about it, that'd be amazing.
This time next year, hopefully I'm in a full-time teaching job with my own class. Yeah, go full circle with it.
Oh, honestly, it's so good. I'm loving getting... Initially, we were never interviewing teachers on the podcast. We were interviewing... It was kind of like estates managers, etc. But I've learned so much, and it's really nice to kind of understand what's going on. You never know. I might end up going into teaching one day.
Yeah.
Now that I know that there's routes, I'll be like, I might just train up, put myself in the pool of,
teal. Throw yourself in. Yeah.
Look, Lucy, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
That's all right. Thank you for giving me the chance to share my story and my journey with you.
We'll see you next year, yeah?
Yeah, maybe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Cheers.
Thank you.